So I think this question comes up quite often these days, that AI and some of these technologies are available, what to do with it, how to do with it, how to think about it. And to me, and there's a framework that we have kept in our company also, I think the way to think about it is that how do we reimagine whatever exists today, utilizing what new technology we have. So we have, let's say, like a supercomputer or whatever at our disposal. Now, what do we want to do? It's almost like saying you have a genie and you can ask the genie what you want because it's capable of doing it. So I think, therefore, the focus shifts not from the delivery, but to the imagination area. Now, if you think about the past, and I think the future is, and the present is a bit different from the past, that we were in a bit of a scarcity era. And in the world of scarcity, a different mental model, a different approach works, which is required, which is to say, you have to spot trends. There are very few trends. If you spot the right trend, you go ahead, you get it, all of that. So all of us were sort of constrained by that, and therefore the waterfall model was the way to go. Continuous improvement was the way to go. So all of these things are a kind of a figment of a scarcity era where things are less. How do you prioritize? Where should you go? Even in education, my father prioritized engineering over something else and said you should do this and nothing else. We have all been used to prioritizing because there was scarcity. If you think about abundance, and to me, AI and many other things represent abundance of future, and we all talk about abundance. Peter Diamandis talks about it. There are other people who talk about this word growth mindset. To me, all of them mean the same. Basically, what they're saying, can you reimagine the new future? Because whatever you can imagine can be done. Technology exists. So I think the biggest issue now is this whole creative imagination of saying, what do I want to do? So the distinction between today's entrepreneurs and the past is that these guys, and if you look at the data, they're imagining things that the previous ones couldn't imagine, because in that scarcity era, they couldn't have had the capital, they couldn't have had the technology, they couldn't have done it. So I do think that today, while database decision making is a enabler, I think the critical factor that is in my mind lacking is the ability to imagine, because historically that ability was not required. It's not part of the education system. It's not part of the family system. It's not even part of the company system, because the seniors that there have all of us have grown there. So to me, I think we have to first acknowledge and recognize that there's many things possible. How do we develop that opportunity to experiment, fail, reinvent? That's the other thing. Failure was not an option. When you have less resources, you are in a scarcity era. How can you fail? There's only so much resources now, and the cost of failure was very high. Now, cost of failure is pretty much very low. So I think it's a whole mindset change that is required. Technology is an enabler, and that's how we look at our own team, which are in this field, to say, talk to the businesses to say, let's together imagine a future which is totally impossible, maybe from your perspective, and then let's try to get there, because we believe all the technology and other things exist to get us there. So that's where I think the biggest muscle development is required on the creativity and imagining the future side. The other parts, I think, are by and large there, and we can develop them accordingly as we go along.
Right. So Pankaj, I think, and this is something which is quite an interesting aspect of this conversation, right? I've always wanted to have Pankaj Rai sitting across me and being, I'm kind of asking him questions. So thanks for the opportunity, Ravi. So Pankaj, one of the things that I've always thought about with all this AI, and I'll give you an example, right? So my daughter writes very well, and a lot of her learning has been through projects, which requires completion of project work and project reports to be submitted. And because she writes well, oftentimes it happens that there's a check which happens these days, because a lot of the project work is now being ChatGPT generated. So the colleges are also checking on that, right? And they have a tool which will give them an idea that it's 50% seems to be not original, right? So here is someone who is actually writing on her own because she writes well, but she might be getting into the trap because a lot of people are just using ChatGPT. So my question is a bit controversial, which is that because of all the tools that we have at our disposal, are we not allowing people to think, which they would have done earlier? Are we stopping people from using their creativity because the answer is there at the press of a button? Is that something which is really helping the talent capability or even personal and professional development of the next generation?
Sure, Shivayu, great question. And I think this is something very relevant for all of us. And I think I often say that a lot of things that are happening now are nothing new. They are just manifesting themselves in different shapes or forms. So to me, new technology from the power loom, the Luddites to now was resisted. Because somehow, while on one hand, look at the irrationality of human beings. On one hand, all of us will say, I get bored. I don't want a boring job. Don't give me a repetitive job. And on the other hand, the repetitive job is the only one, by and large, which is getting automated. People saying, "Arey, this fellow is taking away my job." So I keep telling them that you didn't want the boring job. No, you wanted the creative part. Why don't you enhance your creativity and fill your time with, in fact, I did that in my previous job in Dell when a lot of people would do reporting, which was manual. And I would tell them, why don't you just automate it? And once you get the free time, you can do analysis and other things, right? Many people didn't do it because they were so happy doing that manual job. So to me, I think somehow human beings resist change, even if they say they don't. And we all have to come out of that model. I mean, to me, the example that you gave, I think these teachers, in my opinion, are just wasting their time using ChatGPT tools to, assess what your daughter can do. I think they should be doing something totally different. So to me, right now, the problem lies with the system, which is unable to figure out what to do with their time. And if they don't know anything, they will do something. And to me, checking ChatGPT and plagiarism is, I think, to me, not the most priority task. They should be thinking about how to make this girl more creative. How can she do this? How can she do that? Ask her what she can do. So to me, a lot of existing systems are unable to figure out how to take care of new technology, because the new technology these days is somehow eliminating 90% of the work. Earlier, it would replace 20% when people do something. So they don't know any better, but they have to do something because they have 8 hours. So they'll try to sometime mismanage the current system. So to me right now, the bigger risk is not that we have great technology. The bigger risk that people's lack of creativity will make them do bad things. To me, this is one example of that. And we have to challenge each of us to say, whatever the technology can do, can we do something beyond that? By the way, in my own team, some people say that, so we are a central team and we do a bunch of things and we are trying to develop some capability within the larger group. So one of the jobs of a central team is to develop everyone's capability. So many people are scared that if we develop their capability, what will happen to us? So I say, does the coach get scared that Sachin Tendulkar will hit a century? Think of yourself as a coach. You will coach more people, or you will go to a higher level and coach Sachin Tendulkar to become something more than that, or whatever it is, or get someone else to become that. So sometimes I think our interpretation itself has to evolve, and many a times our fixed mindset is making us, think about the same thing in the same way. At every level, we have to keep evolving, and therefore I keep saying that we have to. The best answer I can think of is think of ourselves as a product, think of every system as a product. Have a 2 week sprint, you have to keep adding features. So you have to keep enhancing, keep evolving. Even your thought process, the same question you can't ask next year. It has to be a different question. Probably that is the way we have to look at ourselves. So we have a 3W framework actually. Ways of thinking, ways of working, ways of doing. I'm saying ways of doing is the technical part. Ways of working is how you organize yourself. Ways of thinking is what questions you ask. All through has to keep evolving. And if you're asking the same thing or doing the same thing next year, you're probably not evolved and you have to question yourself. Many a time the top two layers stay the same. The bottom keeps evolving, which is worthless because you have the best technology. But if your ways of thinking and working are not evolving, then where do you go? And it is sort of similar to the Simon Sinek golden circle, that unless you evolve your why and how, the what itself won't change and things like that. So that's what my thinking is, Shivayu. I don't know whether this resonates with your.
But thanks.
Look at our question papers. Look at the way we judge people. There's a format. We ask questions. We say there are these 8 questions, answer 5, whatever. Right? That's how these questions are. I mean, I tell people that if I was to set a maths question paper, I will say, what do you think are the best 5 problems that you think you would like to solve using math? And now solve them. 70% weightage I'll give you to the problem that you chose, 30% to the solution, and something like that, right? So can someone have a question paper to say, let's say 10 years ago, to say, imagine if we have to make an automobile which does not have an IC engine, what would you look like? Would people have come up with the Tesla? If we were to say, imagine in physics that you have to bring a rocket back to Earth and land it, how would you do it? So I think, and I'm just using Musk's example because he has done some phenomenal thing, but you can ask these types of open-ended questions, and the answers to these don't exist anywhere. I mean, there may be some ideas that they can gain from ChatGPT. So I think that we have to change the question that we ask around us, and that is probably the best way to utilize some of these new things. Otherwise, we are going in the wrong path.
I wanted to sort of understand what I see it as is the AI, technology, all of the stuff has made machine-to-machine interaction very, very seamless. I mean, machines interact with each other all day long, and they don't even think about it. We are getting very, very, in fact, we spoke about it, like human-to-machine interaction is becoming more and more prevalent. We are making more and more headways in that. How do you think with all of this, human-to-human interaction is evolving, or is that remaining same? Because I know you do have a lot of thoughts. I know I've heard you about how ways of working, ways of thinking, ways of operating, we spoke about, or the 4C framework. How, in your mind, you think of this as a 3-layered interaction layers, machine to machine, human to machine, human to human, and any of these evolution and the innovation that we are seeing is changing the top layer of human to human interaction.
Right. And I mean, I think I always go back to Simon Sinek's start with the why. I think the opportunity today is for every 7 billion people to have their unique identity. I think we don't have to live in cohorts. I believe that some of these technologies and UBAs and all will allow each individual to follow their own path. That N is equal to 1, R is equal to something like that. That, you can have an individualized experience, individualized life path, and so on and so forth. So therefore, these days, I don't like to talk in terms of cohorts, whether it is country or company or whatever. I talk in terms of my own self. So, and the easiest thing is to talk about your own self, or how do you think about it and what have you done about it. And maybe other people have to again introspect and start with their why, or discover their why and figure out what works for them. So to me, in fact, I was in a college and I was talking about all this why and all of that. And then some student asked me, what's your why? I said, my why is probably the same that, your grandmother and mother is telling you, just be a good person. Don't harm anyone. If you can help them, please help them. So I would say that after all, this thing, I can't come up with a better why for myself, because to me, it appears that that's what guides my day-to-day, long-term, any interaction. I mean, I don't have a unique why, because, people are all sometimes looking for some unique this thing that, my purpose statement has to be unique. I think, by the way, that framework also, when I said, they asked, is it proprietary? I said, no, it's all open source. Your execution of it will be proprietary. So you will have to apply it to your own unique situation and so on and so forth. So I think, if you look at my own interaction with machines and AI and all of that, it is pretty much negligible. In fact, I have once, some time ago, given a talk that I don't see the relevance of AI in my own life, except that I get paid for working in that field. Because if I look at my day-to-day life, there isn't much need for AI. I get up in the morning, I go for a run or a walk, I talk to people. Once in a while, I check WhatsApp when I get the time. I use the phone, or maybe GPS is being used in walking. But frankly, to me, AI doesn't exist because I don't use it for any particular purpose. But if you were a scientist, you'd use it for something or whatever. So I would think that if we start focusing on what is important to us, our own objective function, and then figure out what are the relevant, important, dominant variables and work on that, I think what tends to happen is that we are all born in a society where we don't have an objective function. We are a variable in every other person's objective function, starting from parents to friends to everyone else. And the cause of stress, to me, occurs to us because we don't have our own function. I believe that if we are able to, over time, evolve our function, help people understand, and it's not to say don't listen to others. You can incorporate everyone's objective function, and yours has to be higher than that, to say, yeah, I understand what my parents want, but I don't want to always listen to them. I'll help them understand why I'm doing what I'm doing. I don't have to always do what my bosses and friends want, because I know what I'm trying to do. So I think if we can all try to figure out and discover and appreciate and be confident of our own why and why we are doing, and help others explain, to me, it's a utopian Carnot's engine type world. There's no stress, but that won't happen. But at least we can strive to do that. So therefore, to me, some of those other questions don't necessarily resonate with me. To me, this is the primary question. If answered, other questions will probably disappear. नहीं, ये बाहर में होते ही शायद लाइट ही कम रखते हो तुम लोग दारू पीने वाले. मैं क्या करूं? your viewers will wonder कि ये तीसरा वाला कहाँ बैठा है. And we will let them guess.
Yes, let them guess.